We got sound? There you go. Hello. I'm back again. We're back again. Ajahn Chah, sometimes you get these really powerful statements from Ajahn Chah's teaching, which I can read, but most of the time was be careful the way you wash your bowl, or make sure you come on time, or if your kuti is sloppy, how can you be a monk? Or sweep the leaves, or it's very mundane stuff about living community life, live in harmony, work with the person you don't like. That was a good one. So he'd say, the very person that triggers off your aversion is your Ajahn, is your teacher. Why do you always hang out with the guys you like? Why do you hang out with the guys you don't like? It's stuff like that. So it's very, very down to earth. So when you read things like these are rare, because he didn't teach from a high level, in the sense that he understood that a group of men living together, or the community of villagers, had very real problems, and one of the basic things you had to learn to do is just to live a grounded life. And so you know the phrase he had that if you want to see a good monastery, if you want to know if there's a good monastery, check out the toilets. It's true. It's really, really true, actually. If you go to a monastery in Thailand and the toilets are sloppy, you think, yeah, okay. So that might not seem like the highest teaching, but if you don't get that kind of earthly stuff right, and you're just in some ethereal perspectives on emptiness and nibbana and the unconditioned, the uncreated, the unoriginated. Yeah, but who's going to clean the toilets? Who's going to do that? So remember, this kind of a retreat, it's the sort of highest part of Buddhist aspiration or spiritual aspiration, but it's done in the context of living a normal life, really. Maybe we look a bit abnormal. I'm just getting used to this outfit. 45 years. But we're normal guys. We work and we have disagreements, and some like coffee, some like tea. This is very ordinary that way. But having said that, for some reason we have the barami, we have the goodness, we have the virtue of being able to be together like this. And these are rare things. And the worldly concerns need to be put away sometime in order to do this more, refined kind of reflection, I suppose you could call it that. Because the world's going to come back and we're going to have to deal with all the stuff that we have to deal with. So putting a time aside is our good fortune. It's our good fortune. So that's why we are sort of talking about such matters. Otherwise, the Buddhism could be left as just like the psychological part of Buddhism, which is very important, obviously. I can't see Barbara. Yeah, so how to bring in the kind of spiritual quality into the mundane is you have to spend some amount of time considering these higher matters, and then hopefully those ideas will start to infiltrate in the kitchen, in the boardroom if you have a boardroom or whatever, in a committee meeting with your grandkids. I'm not saying kids anymore, I'm saying grandkids, sort of. I'm sure you have kids too, and so on. So in some sense, you need to obsess your mind, not in a neurotic way, but in a sustained way where you remember to reflect. So for instance, I used to weave. About 20 years ago, I did a little bit of weaving. And now I'd like to get back into weaving. So guess what I've been looking at? I like to weave, I want to weave rugs. I've done a little bit. So I said, how did they get that color? Look, they've got black, and they could be red too. You think I'm meditating, right? So my mind is somewhat obsessed with color and texture and pattern. Look, and I look. And so, and why is that happening? Because I'm reading about Scandinavian flat weave rugs. I love the designs and I like that. Do you know what a kalim is? As opposed to, anyway, it's a way of weaving. And I love the designs and the colors. And now I found this really fantastic woman who's died since, but she's beautiful design. So my mind is obsessed with that. Not in a bad way, because I'm just interested in the kind of, in the way of beauty and in the way of creation. I can still meditate. I don't think about it all the time. But it's just the way the mind works. If I've been considering weaving patterns and colors, and I'm not very good on color and combining color at all, I don't have that kind of mind, then I'm going to think about it. And when I walk out and I see a carpet or a textile of some sort, there's a textile there, all of a sudden I see, oh, there's a lot of textiles. I see the weave pattern, I see the color, and why am I doing that? Because my mind has been preoccupied with that consideration. So in the same way, if you preoccupy your mind with the ideas of transcendence, the unconditioned, the uncreated, the unborn, those kind of foreign ideas to our culture, not so foreign maybe in India, but probably foreign to folk in India in terms of what they contemplate. So we're taking this time to bring up these ideas, which are not easy, and then hopefully that takes us. We use the psychology of Buddhism, the psychology in the West now is really good. There's just such good stuff about all kinds of things, emotional intelligence, or how to deal with PTSD. It's really fantastic time that way. And then we use that as a foundation and contemplate, well, that's a method. That's not the goal. It's a method. Compassion is a method. And what is the goal? It's this realization of the unconditioned and what that might be. So if we do that for 6 or 7 days together, then hopefully that will just infiltrate all our lives. And then we'll have to do another one next year, or in between, or a Zoom, or whatever. So that's this isn't the be all and end all of our lives. A visiting Zen student asked Ajahn Chah, "How old are you? Do you live here all year round?" "I live nowhere," he replied. "There is no place you can find me. I have no age. To have age, you must exist. And to think you exist is already a problem. Don't make problems. Then the world has none either. Don't make a self. There's nothing more to say." So if you haven't been introduced into the idea, this sounds like gobbledygook, doesn't it? So someone kicks you in the knee. How's that for not self? But if you have been contemplating it, okay, what is he talking about? And that's the idea. He's bringing up, wow, that's a shocking way to say it, or all right, what does he mean? And then you contemplate that for 20 years. People have asked me about my own practice. How do I prepare my own mind for meditation? There's nothing special. I just keep it where it always is. They ask, "Are you then an arahant?" Do I know? I am like a tree full of leaves, blossoms, and fruit. Birds come to eat and to nest. Yet the tree does not know itself. It follows its nature and it is as it is. How's that for enigmatic? And so then that, hopefully that settles somewhere in your psyche, and then sort of maybe stimulates intuition, or you're puzzled by it. So it's not like a straightforward answer that enlightenment is 4.2 squared. It's not like that. It's not a conclusion, like an intellectual conclusion. So when I suggest the question, like, is awareness separate from the sound of the people outside? You know, that this not like you're looking for an answer, but you're awakening, and that awakened state is really the answer, isn't it? Just, oh, that's it. So that's different than analytical questions where you are seeking an intellectual answer. Here you're using a question. Oh yeah, I get it. Then there's the silence, the knowing. So one of the great problems that we talk about in Buddhist practice is doubt. And there's doubt both as a hindrance to concentration and doubt as a fetter on the path. And that's basically giving intellect too much credit at times where it's not the avenue of understanding. It is important, intellect is important, but at some point it has to be the servant to intuition rather than the servant to awakeness. So language which brings you to awakeness, is that a word? You know what I mean? Brings you to that, then that's serving something perhaps larger. Whereas thought, which is like I was talking with one of the monks about free will, and he was listening to a Sam Harris podcast on free will. And so Sam Harris makes the conclusion very cleverly that there is no free will. Okay. And I think that's, to me, what little I read of Western philosophies, these clever people were coming up with clever answers. And so what? You know, what does that do for you when there is no free will? Well, that's just a conclusion, but you know, so I think Buddhism a lot, or Eastern mysticism say, presents paradox, and so like in Buddhism you have Dhamma Vinaya. Vinaya is, yeah, you are responsible for your bowl. You're a monk. Take care of your robes. You are junior to that monk or you're senior to that monk. Yes, you have to be on time. So that's a Vinaya. That's structure, that's living. And then the others, that which arises and ceases is not self. Now that's a paradox, isn't it? Right? Well, wait a minute. What do you mean I have to be on time? There's no one to be on time. So that's the mind which just wants a sort of intellectual conclusion. But we're living the paradox where we use conventional form and we kind of obey the structures of conventional form. And yet we see, is awareness separate from this? Is there a thinker? We enter into that paradox. And then there's not really an answer, but there is silence, there's confidence, these kinds of things. Whereas when you get these kind of hammered out logical conclusions with clever thinkers who talk very well, it's very persuasive, but it's not a path. It doesn't really kind of give you a path. And that's what I like about the kind of like being a monk. It's both pragmatic, very pragmatic. And the rules we have are they kind of seem silly at times, but they ground us, they ground us in some common thing. And yet we're contemplating the unconditioned. So there's a kind of paradox there. So let's do some meditation. So awakening to the way things are. Just that suggestion can indicate silence. There's the sound of the wind, but there's the stillness of knowing. And is that stillness of knowing separate from the sound of the wind? But it's not the same. So it's distinct. There's the knowing of change. But is that knowing of change separate? Is it like one thing as opposed to the sound of the wind? So hopefully the question brings you to silence. And then that is the answer. So what might be helpful to sustain that? Well, loving kindness is very helpful. So bring your attention to the center of the chest. Feel the rising and falling of the breathing at the center of the chest. Non-becoming, non-resistance, non-desire. Welcome the in-breath. Let go of the out-breath. On the in-breath, introduce the name of a friend, someone for whom you have affection that sense of affection is easily remembered as a feeling in the heart. So, Luang Por on the in-breath for me. On the out-breath, may you be well. So I'm stimulating that which is not so difficult to access. I'm making that more constant by repeating the name of the person. And I'm not trying to manufacture anything, just going to that perception of affection, that feeling of affection. And repeatedly staying there. So do that to start, and one person, another person. So this isn't something that like produces stress because it's a, kind of like an offering, a connection. So there's a lot of beauty just in this attitude. If you're trying to manufacture some fantastic state of loving kindness, then of course that's desire. So this is more like you give yourself to this breath at a time. So the breath composes or collects attention, and then the heart opens with the perception of affection. So you notice both the quality of breathing, like the end of the out breath, is it rushed? What happens at the end of the out breath? Does your mind wander? What does the heart actually feel like when you repeat the name of a friend? So there's a kind of exploration, composure, It's done more in an attitude of giving rather than getting, giving yourself to this. So we'll do walking or mind practice until for an hour and a half, an hour, something like that. Get back at 2.